Welcome to The Wave.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. This is Mark with another episode of MIX-THRU. Apologies for my voice right off the bat. I am just getting over the flu, and I completely lost my voice in that whole weird process. But we're going to get through it. We're going to go ahead and at least finish off the drum processing today. I wanted to talk about the preferences window first. I got in here, opened up the session, and I heard some clicks and pops when I was listening to the playback. That's because I had another session pulled up. I was recording guitars in that other session, and in order to record the guitars with as little latency as possible, I changed my buffer size to 32 samples. That's a pretty solid rule of thumb if you're ever trying to record and you're experiencing latency. But what I'm going to do now, because we're back in mix mode, I'm going to go ahead and raise that up to 2048. Make sure that we've got everything we need selected here. We do. Exit out, and now we're back in our session. All right, so here we are. Here's the drums from last time. I even went ahead and preemptively brought in our bass. Show you what that looks like really quick. So this bass sub consists of 6 individual bass tracks. One thing I've noticed that'll be pretty interesting when we get there is I got given a bass lead, which is nice. I can't wait to hear that. But I also got left and right side bass rhythm tracks, and the waveforms do look a little different. So I'm going to see when we get there what they sound like and what we can do to fix one thing and accentuate what could potentially be some awesome bass harmonies going on down in here. So let's go back up here and finish processing our drums. Okay, I think the last things that we wanted to do at this stage were to get a nice, decent little kick drum and snare drum blend. So let's go ahead and solo out our kick drum group. Great. Now, if you remember, we set filters on here so that we can have one track as a high end and one track as a low end. This looks like it's going to be our low end. So let's solo this out. Keep in mind, you all, we're going to get this is all staging for the mix. Yeah, you want to get things close, but we're going to get a rough starting point for where we're going to continue and build on throughout the whole mixing process, right? I'm going to go ahead and solo out the low end of the kick, and we're going to find a good spot to place this filter. I want you guys all to notice this spot right here. That is really going to be, that spot is going to be where our attack sort of starts in this whole thing. I'm going to go ahead and open this up. I'm going to play it back, open the filter up, and you're going to start hearing the introduction of a clicky sounding element to the kick drum. Sort of a tap, 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 really, really high end click element to this kick drum. Here's what I'm talking about. You can really hear it up here. But you'll notice that attack right at the very beginning. It doesn't really go away all the way until you get below where the waveform starts ascending again, right here. So what we want to do on the low end is we want to make sure whatever we do in processing is below that threshold, because we're going to blend that in completely separately down here on this other track. So I'm thinking the low end is coming in at a nice signal strength. We're not going to roll off anything down here for sub yet. I think that's all right. That's good. Okay, now let's take a look at the high end. And it was pretty spot on. So there it is, right there. This is the high end. There's a lot going on up here. And I know that throughout the mix, the high end of the track as a whole is going to have a lot going on in it. So I do want to do some subtractive EQ here. You're going to notice that throughout the mixing process, I'm more focused on cleaning up the spectrum than I am on trying to boost things and get them to pop through. I like to accentuate elements last. So let's give this a listen again and make sure that we aren't getting anything that we don't necessarily want. The technique that I'm about to do is a sweep method where you take a note, bring it all the way to the top, listen to your track, and slowly sweep across. I'm listening for things that I just don't think I like, things that don't sound like they mesh with what I know the end result of the track is going to be like, or my vision of the track. When you find a spot, go ahead and tighten your cue a little bit. This is not the time to be taking massive chunks out of your audio files. Get a nice tight cue. Make sure you're still hearing the part that you want to remove with your cue being tight. And then adjust your gain. Now what I did right there was a little bit of an annoying ring going on in the high side of that kick. Now this happens with snares a lot. When we get to the snare, we're going to be listening for all sorts of rings and different sort of transient things that we want to get out of there. But for right now, I think that's good for the high end of the kick. Let's go ahead and get a blend going. And what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to bring the high end all the way out, the low end down, and then I'm going to bring them both in just to where I think it sounds like a nice cohesive blend. All right. I think that's getting us somewhere close. Let's go ahead and bring them both back up to where we want them. Just right under -6. And then let's pop on over and focus on the snare. We've got it soloed out. We're going to give a listen. All right, so this band pass is really just an additive. This is going to be our blendable track here. Also, I'm going to open up this other snare track so that we get more of what the sample has to offer. Now, there is a spot here around 1K that I'm going to dip out. Vocals are going to be really prevalent there, and it's probably full of things that you don't necessarily hear in the mix and you don't want to hear. Here's what I mean by that. You hear all that extra ringy muddiness? We're going to take some of that out. Now let's go ahead and look at the waveform because this is going to help us decide how wide we need to keep our cue. There's a fairly wide area here where it dips down. I'm coming almost down to here and really not hearing a noticeable difference in the sample. I do a little bit, but it's not crazy, and the sample still sounds like itself. I think this is going to get a tiny bit tighter. And then we can come in and blend in our bandpass to try to add a little more oomph right here, right up the pipe, without adding compression yet. There's our track with just the scoop in the mid. All right, and there it is with our blend track added. Now that we've done that, the last thing that we need to do to kind of tidy up our original drum organization and placement is to just get another rough mix. And then we can move on to bass. Now remember, we have our bass tracks in here now. So when I want to come in and hear just my drum kit, I've got to remember to come over here and solo it out. If you're in another DAW, you may have to solo safe your subgroup tracks in order to do this. If you don't solo safe your tracks, when you go to solo the sub, you won't get any sound. Just a quick reminder there for all of you Reaper and Pro Tools users. Oh yeah, so the kick and the snare have definitely gained a lot of volume here. This is where we're going to make use of our kick blend and snare blend faders. All right, that sounds pretty good. Let's go ahead and go back here and roll on into bass. Keeping it clean, I'm going to hit Command S to save my session. I do that about every 12 seconds, by the way, everyone. We're going to collapse that, and we are going to move on to bass. First thing we want to do, solo out each bass track. Just give it a quick listen. Oh yeah, nice pingy bass tone. Okay. All right, awesome. Now I know why we had so many bass tracks. Okay, so mix engineer encountering a problem. Let's fix it. So it looks like we only have one bass track, and this might actually be good. This session is going to be a little shorter today, guys. I do apologize, but we are wrapping up the flu over here, and it has been excruciating. So we can pop right into bass processing next week. For now, though, you get to see some of the types of things that'll come up and how you can fix them in your session. So here's what happened with this. I got the project session file folder from my client, and it had a zipped folder in it called bass. There is also one called guitar, so we'll see if maybe there are duplicate items in here that we've got to sift through. But it looks like there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guitar tracks and one bass track. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to highlight all the guitar tracks, bring them out of the group, and in Ableton you do that by just going down to the selection below your group. We're going to recolor these orange. Then we are going to add them to their own guitar group. All right, this can be cut off for now and collapsed. Now to set up our bass processing, the first thing that we're going to do is come in here and duplicate the track. It's going to be added to our group because this track already lives in the bass sub. And then we're going to come in here, add a couple of plugins. So we're going to add an EQ to the bass sub itself, and then to each individual track. Okay. Awesome. We're going to do the same type of processing that we did with the kick and the snare drum here. And then with this EQ filter on the subgroup, we're going to apply what's called feathering EQ. Now this is where you take out certain frequencies based on other things that need to live there. So with bass guitar, one thing that's really common is for the guitar to mask some of the frequencies in the kick drum track, so that your kick drum doesn't pop through the mix like it should. It gets buried in a bunch of bass mud. The way that we fix that is we find our kick drum frequency. So we come in here, looks like the root is right here, which is 35.9 hertz. That's common. About 40 hertz to 70 hertz or so is the common place to find kick drum frequency. So let's go ahead and set ourselves up for success. Change number 1 here to a bell. Bring it right up to 39 hertz or 40 hertz, that's okay. And with a fairly tight cue, we're going to make a cut of about 3 to 5 dB. Just like that. Now we also want to do this for our snare drum. I want to say it was right under 200. And it is 182. So we're going to come in here, and at 182 hertz, we're going to do the same thing. Boom. Just like that, about 4 dB. What this is going to do, when we pick up next time and we start processing this bass, all the moves that we make down here are now going to be governed by this EQ on this bass sub track. So this helps us not get too carried away, changing things down here to improve tone or whatever it is that we're trying to do, and then re-muddying up the kick and snare areas of our drum track. All right, everybody, that's going to be it for today. Again, apologies for the short session, but we will see you all next time.